This video has been filmed. Twice. This video has been rewritten. Twice. Part of me doesn't even know what to do with this anymore. Part of me keeps screaming that it's all terrible and that I should scrap the whole thing, and yet another part of me is trying desperately to get that second guy to shut up. So, I'm just saying screw it. Let's roll. It feels like the only way to do this is just film everything again and then edit it all as quickly as possible. Work in this fugue state where I literally don't have time to second guess any of my creative decisions in a mad attempt to stave off the doom my inner critic is insisting will befall me if I so much as consider making something that I like or bettering myself or enriching the lives and world of people around me. I am not the Dark King. I am not the Dark King. I will forgo my destiny! Hey everyone, it is Tuesday, I am Tuesday, and today I'm gonna talk about Dark Rise, first book of the Dark Rise trilogy, by splitting it into two major sections covering the first two acts and then final act respectively, while trying not to lose my marbles any more than I already have. Timestamps will be below. I'd like to give a shout out to my very lovely girlfriend who recommended me this series. It's not usually the type of thing I would normally read, but I'm very glad that I did. So, I'm very glad she put it on my radar. If anyone has any similar recommendations, make sure to tell me about them in the comments down below. I'm always looking for more books to read, so I'd love to add a few dozen more to my ever-expanding TBR list based on what y'all have to say. As always, remember to subscribe for more of whatever this is. Now where was I? Dark Rise feels like you've read it before, but guess what? That's kind of the whole point. So let me learn you some shit. Let's say you're writing your first YA fantasy novel. We'll start with the basics based on just all of the tropes. We'll have your protagonist be a meek, handsome young man, an unwilling fish out of water best boy destined by fate to save the world from a magical power he didn't know existed. His mother is dead, obviously, and he gets bonus points in the tragedy department if he had to watch her die. Now, somewhere in here we have the call to adventure, the realization that the world is not what it seems. There's gonna be a secret order of wizards or warriors or what have you, working to protect the world from an evil leader who wants to resurrect the Christian-coded Dark Lord, in order to instill a reign of shadow and torment, which will last until the end of days, and so on, and so forth, and such. It's a nice, safe setup, so that's what we're gonna use. Now, how is our boy gonna navigate this new world? With a mentor. He or she is the best of the best, for now. They're gonna pale in comparison to how strong the core group of protagonists become, but that's more of a book 3 type of development. We're not quite there yet. Now, what am I missing? Oh, a love interest! You can't forget the love interest. There has to be one of those. It doesn't even matter if she's really fully fleshed out character or anything, because all she has to do is be cute and interested in our main boy, and everybody knows there will be trials and tribulations, but it's all gonna turn out fine because we've all already read this story before in 1,000 ways over 1,000 times, and I really just can't stop thinking about that dashing blonde man in the black suit and overcoat who seems too beautiful for this world and has palpable sadomasochistic tension with my main hero boy, and oh my god, why don't they just kiss already? I mean, ignore that. We'll get back to that later. What I mean to say is that Dark Rise feels so familiar it's almost boring, right until it decides to punch you in the gooch and then call you a bitch for crying about it. In fact, Pacat's subversion of our expectations is so complete that I have to admit I had trouble getting into this story because so much of the first 2/3 of this novel felt like something I had already seen. Seriously, this is my girlfriend's favorite book series, and she told me the exact same thing. If you had come up to me and asked me to describe a YA urban fantasy story, I probably would have demanded to know how you got into my apartment. Afterwards, though, I'd have come up with something similar to what Dark Rise presents us, minus the late Georgian era setting, and you likely would have too. The characters and the world have personality, sure, but at the same time, they follow every beat you'd be accustomed to from this type of story, as if Pacat is looking at you as the reader and saying, "It's a bog-standard YA novel. What do you expect?" While eagerly awaiting the point, you'll let your guard down. That's not to say there aren't hints to the rug pull that takes place later on, of course, more that they're never so substantial as to give themselves away, instead acting as moments of realization in retrospect. Because of this, I find it highly likely for some of those who read this novel to put it down, before the story really gets going. Don't. Mild spoiler warning, but anything after James gets captured is the point where this book really starts to shine. Up until then, however, you will be treading through familiar territory. Each of our main characters has personal mentor figures in the form of Justice and the Elder Steward. They have shonen-style rivals in the form of James and Cyprian, who is a bitch. They have a gaggle of novice friends who help them navigate this new world while attending a magical school of warriors on the grounds of a secret world hidden in plain sight built atop the remnants of an ancient lost kingdom. This is obviously the training arc novel, right? The climax of the series' first act will be a grand showdown at Simon's estate, in which Marcus will be saved through a hard-fought battle and the forces of evil will be put on the back pedal, allowing our heroes the time to be able to hone their skills to defeat the darkness once and for all. Everything is going to be okay, remember? Nothing could possibly go wrong. You know, until it does. Don't start crashing. Violet, Cyprian, who is a bitch, and Will are returning with knowledge of Marcus's whereabouts in order to help the stewards and prevent massive casualties. They will ride victorious into the hallowed Hall of the Light with their newfound knowledge and craft a plan to thwart Simon's schemes once and for all. Together with the help of the Elder Steward, they shall prevent the omens of the Dark King's return from coming to pass and ensure the world's salvation in the face of the forces of darkness. At least that's what Pacat wants you to think, isn't it? What if it's too late, though? What if the stewards can't beat the dark? What if Marcus already turned? What if Simon already has the blood of the lady and can release the Shadow Kings? What if 17 years ago the Dark King already rose and nobody was looking hard enough to notice? What do you think would happen if the ultimate progenitor of evil allowed himself the opportunity to lose? The one word that keeps coming back to me whenever I think of this story is subversion. Nothing about this narrative is what it seems on the face of it, and this can be seen in both a macro and micro sense. Pacat attempts to lull you into a false sense of security by giving you an, at times, dreadfully by the numbers tale, so that when every last steward gets fucking murked off screen, it hits you like a bullet in the gut, and you're left wondering how on earth it could be possible to move forward. The little bits that seemed erroneous begin falling into place. Catherine's existence becomes justified. Will's inability to use his powers gains both weight and merit, and his relationship to James becomes all the more enticing. So, just to catch everyone up on the backstory for the final few chapters' big reveal, here's how it all went down. 17 years and 9 months ago, or thereabouts, Simon killed Catherine and Elizabeth's aunt, spilling the blood of the lady and causing the Dark King to be reborn into our time. This caused Catherine and Elizabeth's mother, who we initially thought was Will's mother, to send the two of them away in order to protect them both from Simon and from Will as he grew up and grew into his power. We do not know if Will, Catherine, and Elizabeth are related. About 6 months before the story starts, Simon finally catches up to Will and his mom and kills her because he doesn't realize Will is the reborn Dark King, thus kicking off the events of the story. Will spends his free time attempting to sabotage Simon's trading company while figuring out how best to get revenge. The sabotage plot isn't really fleshed out. It's an interesting idea, I just would have liked to see it more developed. Eventually falling in with stewards, and if you've been paying any attention, you can guess what happens from there. Through this, Will slowly realizes it was actually Simon's dad who put the hit out, that he is actually the reborn Dark King, and that he and James used to be fucking like 10,000 years ago. Flash forward to his final showdown with Simon, and Will is not at all happy about this information. Let's break this down. We have your Tolkien-esque fantasy story filtered through the lens of YA fiction, except actually everything has gone to shit without anyone realizing. We have your Dark Rise.
Hey, that's the name of the show.
Of your Dark King, except that dude wants nothing to do with his sordid legacy or prophesied role as the master of ultimate evil, so much so that he actively makes decisions to fuck himself over if he ever goes full Hitler mode. We have your elegant lady heroine come to fight her lover turned rival in order to save the world, except actually she gets gacked by her own stupidity and fear, leaving her annoying kid sister to bear the mantle of the Light's final guardian. Even Cyprian, who is a bitch, didn't take up arms to fight a climactic battle and prove himself as a warrior. That shit fell to Violet, bruh. All of this information leads to one simple conclusion. Pacat intuitively understands the genre they are writing in, while also conferring a certain level of trust into you that you, as a reader, intuitively know a huge chunk of the story's contents. There is a cultural shorthand for fantasy narratives that we implicitly understand due to their ubiquity within the pop media landscape, which is why Dark Rise is able to function so effectively as a deconstruction. There are twists within this book that would not land nearly as well if we didn't have an accepted narrative zeitgeist for fantasy mass media. It's a level of respect provided to you as the reader that I have found hard to come by with Pacat's peers in the genre, and entirely refreshing to interact with. Because of all of that, I'm obviously going to recommend you read this, but before I do, I would like to engage in some wild speculation. Hi. Transitions are hard, but do you want to know what else is hard? Predicting the future. Let us try it together. I guess this is less of a prediction and more of a fear I hold for the future of the story. Okay? Anyone who's taken an Intro to Lit class, or a basic fictional writing class, or an Intro to Theater class, should be familiar with the concept of Chekhov's gun, and let me tell you, James's collar is a gun if I've ever seen one. What did he do with it? Where did it go? Why is there character art of him with it on? My girlfriend tells me not to worry about it, but I find it hard not to be. I have a sneaking suspicion that the collar will come back into play in the third and final novel in the series, which, at time of recording, has yet to be released. I'm sure if it does rear its head again, its doing so will be sufficiently tragic to excuse my anxiety over the thing, but I really don't want that to happen because I don't know if my little old heart can take it. He's just so pretty! And I bid you good night. Good night. I said at the top that I don't read a lot of young adult novels, if I can help it. There are a lot of reasons for that, but I'll try to simplify it for the sake of brevity. I believe that the young adult genre, by and large, to be a trash heap, a dumpster fire of the highest order filled with unoriginal, oftentimes regurgitated slop that routinely panders to the lowest common denominator, like me, while actively treating its core audience and customer base like a mangy pack of brain-dead orangutans who cannot tell right from left, while simultaneously stroking the egos of whichever author has decided to haphazardly recreate Harry Potter, or the Hunger Games, or the Dresden Files, or Twilight, and has subsequently been shoveled to the forefront of this week's bestseller list. What am I doing, man? Who hurt that guy? That guy should be nowhere near political office. Don't get me wrong, I want my perception of this genre to change, okay? I do not like the fact that whenever I hear the term young adult fiction, a whole cavalcade of cringeworthy connotations pop up in my head, but, I haven't been given a lot to dissuade me from this view, so that's where I'm at. Now, with my somewhat extremely unreasonable biases towards YA in mind, I'm not saying that there aren't gems hidden beneath all of this. But rather that, from my experience of it, this genre has a tendency to treat those who are ostensibly supposed to read these novels like they're stupid, which made Dark Rise feel very refreshing within that context. I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think enough people have given this book a shot. What? Shut up, Raymond. I'm getting to that. This is a generally ludicrous thing to say, but doubly so for a novel you can find sitting on a shelf at Barnes & Nobles. From what I can tell, this book is a relatively popular sleeper hit within the genre, but as an outsider to most of this stuff, I had never heard of it, and I'm willing to bet a lot of you haven't either. Which is a shame, because it's actually quite good! i.e., it is more than worth your time to read. I've talked about my rating scale before, but it bears repeating here because it might seem a little confusing to newcomers. My rating scale is numbered from 0 to 10 and sits on a bell curve, with 5 being in the exact middle. Most of the things I review get a 4, a 5, or a 6. This scale does not measure quality, but instead how worth your time a piece of media is to interact with. Anything above a 3 is worth your time to interact with. So here's the word. Overall, Dark Rise is a seemingly generic young adult fantasy novel with a right hook that'll knock you out of your socks. It's full of twists and turns you wouldn't necessarily expect and is overall a very fun time. It's definitely not for everyone, but I do think it's more worth your time to read than not, and I am very much looking forward to the sequels. As such, I'm going to give it a good score on my rating scale and put it at a 6 out of 10. I mean 20 out of 10. Don't forget to like and subscribe to catch my review of the sequel.